A young boy vanishes without a trace near his neighborhood playground, leaving behind a family desperate for answers. Years later, an abandoned bicycle reappears, igniting a haunting mystery and a desperate search that could finally bring him home. This is the powerful story of loss, hope, and the unbreakable bond of family. The late afternoon sun cast a warm golden glow over the small neighborhood playground, turning the swings and slides into shimmering shapes of childhood joy. Laughter echoed through the crisp spring air as children ran freely, their voices mixing with the distant hum of birdsong and the occasional bark of a dog. 8-year-old Tommy was at the heart of the playground's energy, his little legs pumping furiously as he pedaled his blue bicycle along the cracked asphalt path that looped around the park. His face was alight with the pure delight that only a child can know, flushed with the excitement of speed and the simple freedom of movement. Around him, friends shouted and cheered, racing each other and daring to try new stunts on the monkey bars. Tommy's mother, Lisa, sat on a nearby bench, her eyes lovingly following her son's every move. The kind smile she wore was a mask of contentment, a perfect snapshot of a happy family afternoon. The community here was tight-knit. Neighbors exchanged friendly greetings and shared the stories of their own childhoods. For Lisa, this park was a sanctuary, a place where worries melted away, replaced by the easy rhythm of kids playing. But then, in the blink of an eye, everything changed. Tommy had stopped at the water fountain to catch his breath, wiping sweat from his forehead. Moments later, when Lisa glanced back, his bicycle was there, leaning against the fence, his jacket tossed over the handlebars. But Tommy himself was nowhere to be seen. Her heart tightened instantly. At first, she thought maybe he had gone to the restroom or was chasing after a friend. But when she called out his name, the only answer was the quiet rustle of leaves and distant laughter that wasn't his. Panic clawed up her throat. She jumped up, her voice rising as she scanned the playground and the surrounding area. Tommy, where are you?" Other parents noticed her distress and began calling for the boy too. What started as casual concern rippled into alarm. The sun dipped lower, casting longer shadows that seemed to swallow the playground's brightness. One by one, the children stopped playing, sensing the sudden tension in the air. The police arrived quickly after a frantic call from Lisa. Officers combed the playground, shining flashlights into every corner, checking behind bushes and playground equipment. They questioned parents, nearby shopkeepers, and even passing joggers, hoping someone had seen something unusual. But no one had seen where Tommy went. There was no sign of a struggle, no footprints leading away from the playground, no witnesses to a suspicious figure or a vehicle. It was as if Tommy had simply vanished into thin air. The playground that had just moments before been a place of joy was now steeped in fear and confusion. Parents gathered, whispering anxiously, while children clung to their caregivers, frightened by the sudden change. Lisa's screams pierced the stillness of the evening, pleas for her son to come back. The local news trucks arrived, cameras flashing as reporters asked questions, trying to piece together what had happened. The community united, launching searches into the surrounding woods, scouring every inch of nearby streets and alleys. Flyers with Tommy's smiling face were printed and handed out. Neighbors posted them on lampposts and shop windows, hoping against hope that someone would recognize him. As darkness fell, the playground lights flickered on, casting an eerie glow over empty swings and silent slides. The very ground where Tommy had played now seemed haunted by his absence. Parents whispered stories of children lost before, reminding themselves of the worst fears. Lisa refused to leave, sitting on the bench where she had watched Tommy just hours earlier, tears streaming down her cheeks as she whispered his name into the night, desperate to believe he was still out there somewhere. This was no ordinary disappearance. It was a wound that cut deep into the heart of the neighborhood, leaving a lingering question in every mind. What had happened to little Tommy? The answer remained shrouded in mystery, hidden somewhere in the fading light of that once joyful afternoon. The days following Tommy's disappearance unfolded in a haze of disbelief and heartache that engulfed not only his family, but the entire community. Lisa and her husband, Mark, were consumed by a desperate hope that gnawed away at their every waking moment. Their home, once filled with laughter and the innocent clutter of toys, became eerily silent, a shrine to a missing son whose absence echoed in every empty chair and untouched plate. Friends and neighbors offered what comfort they could, but no words could pierce the veil of anguish that cloaked the family. The police, though quick to respond initially, were soon forced to admit that leads were scarce. Witnesses had been questioned repeatedly. Search parties had scoured the nearby woods, alleys, and even abandoned buildings with no success. Days blurred into nights as volunteers joined forces with authorities, their flashlights flickering through underbrush and abandoned playgrounds. But no trace of Tommy was ever found. The local media kept the story alive, plastering his face on every screen and newsstand. But as the weeks stretched on, the intensity of the search faded, replaced by a growing, painful uncertainty. For Lisa, each morning was a torment. She woke clutching the space beside her in bed where Tommy used to sleep, expecting to hear his morning chatter or footsteps in the hallway, only to be met by crushing silence. Mark tried to be her rock, but grief weighed heavily on him as well, their shared pain sometimes turning to quiet resentment and frustration. Their conversations grew sparse, filled with what-ifs and regrets. Friends urged them not to give up hope, but the toll was evident: sleepless nights, missed work, and the haunting fear that their son might never return. The neighborhood itself felt irrevocably changed. The playground, once alive with joyous screams and the rhythmic creak of swings, stood empty more often than not. Parents held their children tighter, eyes scanning every shadow with suspicion. The air was thick with unspoken fear, and children whispered about the boy who disappeared, their imaginations filling in the gaps with stories too frightening for daylight. The community rallied support for Tommy's family, organizing vigils and prayer meetings, but the underlying dread remained. Police detectives kept the case open, revisiting evidence and re-interviewing witnesses periodically, but without new information, their efforts yielded no breakthroughs. The local law enforcement agency dedicated a cold case unit to Tommy's disappearance, but as months turned into years, hope dimmed. The investigation files thickened, gathering dust alongside the family's fading hopes. Posters of Tommy, once vibrant and hopeful, yellowed on walls and trees, slowly becoming relics of a painful past. For Lisa, the greatest agony was the unknown. There were no answers, no clues to follow, no closure. Every sound in the night made her heart leap with false hope. Every stranger's glance felt like a silent accusation or a secret that she couldn't unlock. The uncertainty was a cruel companion, worse than any truth because it imprisoned her in endless waiting. Yet, amid the despair, the family refused to surrender completely. Lisa began writing letters to Tommy, keeping a diary of memories and hopes. Mark joined support groups for parents of missing children, finding solace in shared pain. The community created scholarships and memorials in Tommy's name, ensuring his spirit would never be forgotten. Still, the nights remained the hardest, empty, long, and cold. As the first anniversary of Tommy's disappearance approached, a somber vigil was held at the playground. Candles flickered in the gentle breeze, casting shadows that danced like ghosts across tear-streaked faces. Friends, family, neighbors, and even strangers gathered, united in grief and the faint glimmer of hope. Speeches were made, prayers whispered, but no one dared believe the nightmare would end soon. Though life moved forward, schools resumed, seasons changed, new children were born, the wound Tommy's disappearance left was permanent. His parents clung to the belief that someday, somehow, their son would come home. The playground remained a bittersweet symbol, a place where innocence was lost and a mystery lingered in the air, waiting to be solved. Years slipped by like whispers carried away on the wind, leaving behind a quiet that felt heavy and hollow. The neighborhood moved forward in its own way, but the silence that followed Tommy's disappearance hung over everything like a shadow, refusing to lift. The playground, once alive with the joyful sounds of children's laughter and the excited cries of play, grew quieter each season. Fewer parents dared bring their kids there, and those who did watched with guarded eyes, a mixture of protectiveness and lingering fear etched into their faces. What had been a place of carefree fun now felt like a fragile monument to a lost boy in a broken community. Tommy's family carried the weight of that silence most of all. Lisa and Mark's lives had been irreversibly altered by the boy who had vanished on that sunny afternoon so many years ago. Despite the passing time, their hopes stubbornly refused to fade. Lisa kept Tommy's room exactly as it had been, the walls still decorated with colorful drawings, the bed neatly made, and his favorite stuffed animal perched on the pillow. Each morning she would sit there for a moment, whispering to the empty space, telling him about her day and how much she missed him. Mark, though quieter, held on to memories with a fierce devotion, often staring at old photographs, his eyes clouded with a mixture of sorrow and determination. The police files on Tommy's case thickened with every passing year, the details slowly gathering dust on shelves in the cold case unit. Despite periodic reviews and attempts to find new leads, the investigation remained frustratingly stagnant. Witnesses who had once been cooperative began to forget small details, and the evidence was painstakingly sparse. It was as if Tommy had been swallowed whole by the earth, leaving no trail behind. Locals whispered stories about what might have happened, some saying Tommy had run away, others fearing worse. Rumors circulated, some more hopeful than others, but none brought concrete answers. The playground became a place adults avoided mentioning, a wound too raw to revisit. The community's collective heart bore the ache of unanswered questions, and parents grew vigilant, tightening their grip on their children's hands whenever they ventured near the park. Tommy's disappearance became a legend, a story parents told their kids in hushed voices, a warning wrapped in sorrow. Yet amid the grief, his family refused to accept defeat. Lisa joined support groups for families of missing children, finding solace in shared pain, but never losing sight of her own child. She wrote letters to Tommy, leaving them by the window or tucked under his pillow, hoping that if he were out there somewhere, he might somehow feel her words. Mark channeled his anguish into advocacy, working with local authorities to improve child safety awareness and push for stronger search protocols. Though they faced setbacks and moments of crushing despair, their love for Tommy fueled an unbreakable bond and an unwavering fight to find him. Meanwhile, the playground itself was a silent witness to time's passage. Faded paint peeled from the merry-go-round, and weeds sprouted through cracks in the pavement. Swings swayed gently in the wind, moving to a melody only the empty park could hear. Children's voices, once abundant, now came only in echoes carried by the breeze. The space was a ghost of its former self, haunted by the absence of the boy who had once raced around on his bicycle. Even as new families moved into the neighborhood, the story of Tommy's disappearance remained a cautionary tale, a constant reminder of vulnerability and loss. It shaped how parents raised their children, with heightened awareness and vigilance, but it also planted a seed of resilience. The community learned to cherish its bonds even more deeply, to protect the innocence that remained, and to never forget the boy who vanished one afternoon and never returned. Despite the silence, the flame of hope flickered quietly in the hearts of those who loved Tommy. They believed that someday the truth would emerge, that the shadows surrounding his disappearance would lift, and that the playground, once a place of pain and fear, might again be filled with laughter. Until then, the silent years stretched on, heavy with waiting, but never empty of love. The years had cast a long shadow over Tommy's disappearance, but the world often surprises us when we least expect it. One crisp autumn morning, nearly 7 years after that fateful day, a local park ranger named Mike was making his usual rounds near the outskirts of the neighborhood playground. The trees were shedding their leaves, painting the ground in shades of amber and gold. The air was cool and still, carrying the faint scent of earth and distant smoke from a nearby chimney. Mike had been patrolling these grounds for years and knew every path, every hidden nook and cranny, like the back of his hand. But as he approached the old playground fence, something caught his eye, an object partially buried under a pile of leaves near the edge of the park. Curious, he stepped closer and brushed away the debris to reveal a rusted bicycle while poking out from the dirt. His heart skipped a beat. He quickly cleared more leaves and dirt, uncovering the frame of a small, blue bicycle, unmistakably a child's bike, weathered and coated with years of grime. The sight of the abandoned bicycle stirred a flood of memories. The same blue bike that had belonged to Tommy, the very one that had been left leaning against the fence the day he disappeared. Mike's hands trembled slightly as he called it in to the police. The news spread like wildfire through the neighborhood, reigniting old hopes and stirring up memories long buried under the weight of time. Lisa and Mark were notified immediately. When Lisa arrived at the scene, her breath caught in her throat. The bicycle was battered and broken, its frame twisted and paint chipped, but to her, it was a beacon, a tangible connection to the son she had lost. She ran her fingers over the cold metal, tears streaming down her face as emotions she had buried for years surged forth. Mark stood silently beside her, his jaw clenched, his eyes searching for answers that the bicycle alone could not provide. The police reopened the case with renewed vigor. Forensics experts arrived, carefully photographing and collecting the bicycle as evidence. The discovery suggested that Tommy's disappearance might not have been as straightforward as previously thought. Questions swirled. How had the bike ended up so far from the playground? Had Tommy left it there? Or had someone else moved it? Theories abounded, and detectives pored over old files alongside new evidence, hoping to find a clue that had once been overlooked. The community, too, was shaken by the discovery. Parents who had cautiously let their children play at the park began to reconsider, while some whispered fears about the past returning to haunt them. Yet, amidst the fear, there was also a renewed sense of determination. Flyers were reprinted, search parties organized, and neighborhood watches intensified. The story that had faded into memory now felt urgent again, like a wound reopened but ready to heal. For Lisa and Mark, the bicycle was a fragile thread connecting the present to the past. It brought with it painful questions, but also a spark of hope, the possibility that Tommy was still out there somewhere, that the mystery could still be solved. The family clung to that hope fiercely, even as the police cautioned patience, reminding everyone that finding the bike was just the first step on a long road. As the days turned into weeks, the investigation gained momentum. New interviews were conducted, and locals who had once been silent began to share what they remembered. Small details that had seemed insignificant before suddenly gained new meaning. The community's collective memory was awakening, and with it, the possibility that the boy who had disappeared might not have been forgotten after all. Yet, even with this unexpected clue, the truth remained elusive. The bicycle was a piece of a puzzle with many missing parts, and no one knew where the journey would lead. But one thing was clear: Tommy's story was far from over. The past had reached out to the present with a fragile, rusty hand, inviting those who loved him to follow the trail wherever it might lead, to answers, to hope, and perhaps, finally, to closure. The discovery of the bicycle injected new energy and hope into the hearts of Tommy's family and the community. After so many years of silence, this physical piece of his past sparked a sense of possibility that had nearly been extinguished. Lisa clung to the fragile hope that this might finally be the turning point, a sign that Tommy might still be out there, waiting to be found. The police intensified their investigation with renewed vigor. They combed through the neighborhood once more, revisiting areas previously searched and questioning residents anew. Detectives focused on the spot where the bicycle was found, trying to determine how it had gotten there and whether it was linked to Tommy's disappearance or simply abandoned by another child. Forensics experts meticulously examined the bike, searching for any clues, fingerprints, fibers, or DNA that might provide answers. Although the bike was old and weathered, advances in technology gave them a glimmer of hope that something overlooked in the past might now be revealed. The tension was palpable as Lisa and Mark awaited any news, their hearts both hopeful and terrified. In the days following the discovery, the community came together in a way that had not been seen since the first days after Tommy vanished. Local volunteers organized search parties to comb the surrounding woods and parks again. Flyers featuring Tommy's smiling face were handed out at schools and community centers, and social media buzzed with posts and messages of support. Strangers from neighboring towns even offered help, touched by the story of a lost boy whose fate remained a mystery. Lisa found solace in these moments, feeling less isolated in her grief. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to believe in a future where her family might be whole again. She and Mark spent countless hours talking about what they would do if Tommy returned, where they would go, how they would heal, and how they would never let him out of their sight. However, the renewed investigation was not without its frustrations. The police cautioned the family to temper their expectations. The passage of time had made it harder to uncover solid leads, and the bicycle's condition left many questions unanswered. Was the bike simply abandoned after Tommy disappeared, or had it been moved there years later? The detectives had no easy answers. Despite these uncertainties, the hope sparked by the bicycle was a powerful force. Lisa began to attend support groups more actively, sharing the story of the renewed investigation and encouraging others to never give up on their missing loved ones. Mark became involved with local law enforcement initiatives, pushing for improved community safety measures to prevent tragedies like Tommy's disappearance from happening again. Meanwhile, the neighborhood buzzed with renewed interest in Tommy's story. Local news stations ran follow-up segments, interviewing Lisa and Mark and covering the community's efforts to find answers. The playground where Tommy vanished became a gathering place for those who wanted to remember him and support the search. Candles were lit, messages written on chalkboards, and flowers placed near the fence, symbols of enduring love and determination. Yet, even with the optimism, the pain remained. Each day without answers deepened the ache in Lisa and Mark's hearts. They feared that the hope they held might one day shatter like fragile glass, leaving them lost in despair once again. Still, they refused to surrender to hopelessness. Every small sign, every whisper of possibility was a lifeline they grasped tightly. As the weeks turned into months, subtle new details began to emerge. Witnesses who had once stayed silent due to fear or uncertainty started to come forward. Old friends of Tommy's mentioned a stranger who had been seen lurking near the playground around the time of his disappearance. An anonymous tip suggested a possible location where the boy might have been taken. With each new piece of information, the police reopened avenues of inquiry, following leads that, though faint, provided a glimmer of direction. The community's collective efforts, combined with the family's unwavering resolve, were slowly beginning to push back the darkness of those silent years. For Lisa and Mark, the flicker of hope kindled by that abandoned bicycle was more than just a symbol. It was a promise that their son's story was still being written, that the past had not forgotten him, and that someday, somehow, they might finally uncover the truth. Until then, they would hold on to that hope with every ounce of strength they had left. The months that followed the bicycle's discovery were filled with a mix of cautious optimism and intense investigation. The police, fueled by fresh energy and community support, dug deeper than ever before into Tommy's disappearance. Detectives re-examined old evidence, reviewed witness statements, and followed every lead no matter how small. The case, which had long sat cold, was now a flurry of activity, breathing new life into the search for answers. One of the most promising leads came from a local shopkeeper named Mrs. Jensen. She owned a small convenience store near the playground and had been there on the day Tommy vanished. For years, she had kept quiet, haunted by the memory of a suspicious man she had noticed that afternoon but never reported. Now, feeling the weight of time and the revived investigation, she came forward with a detailed description. Mrs. Jensen remembered seeing a tall, thin man with a scruffy beard who had been lingering near the playground, watching the children closely. He had seemed out of place, as though he didn't belong in the neighborhood. The man had left the area shortly after Tommy disappeared, but Mrs. Jensen recalled his license plate number and handed it over to the police. This clue sparked a new wave of searching. The detectives traced the plate to a man named Harold Bennett, a drifter with a murky past and connections to several other small towns nearby. Bennett had a record of petty theft and disturbing behavior, but nothing directly linked him to Tommy's case, at least not yet. Authorities dug into his history, interviewing former acquaintances and searching his last known residences for any signs of the missing boy. Meanwhile, the community's renewed interest helped uncover other overlooked details. A young woman named Sarah, who had been a teenager when Tommy disappeared, recalled hearing strange noises near the park's wooded edge late that afternoon. She hadn't reported it back then, thinking it was just kids playing or an animal in the brush. Now, those memories took on a new and chilling significance. Sarah described hearing a faint cry, almost like a child calling for help, and seeing a flash of movement near the trees. Though it had seemed insignificant years ago, the police sent a search team to comb the dense woodland surrounding the playground. Though no concrete evidence was found immediately, the search zone expanded, including areas that had never been thoroughly examined before. The combination of witness accounts and renewed investigation rekindled hope, but also fear. Parents in the neighborhood became increasingly protective, organizing patrols and urging children to stay close. The playground, once shunned, became a focal point for community gatherings, candlelight vigils, fundraising events for missing children's organizations, and meetings with law enforcement. Lisa and Mark threw themselves into these efforts. Lisa met with families of other missing children, finding strength in shared grief and purpose. Mark volunteered to help coordinate neighborhood watches and worked with local schools to teach children about safety and awareness. Yet the personal toll was heavy. Each new lead was a double-edged sword, a source of hope tempered by the pain of uncertainty. The couple oscillated between moments of optimism and despair. Nights were restless, filled with dreams of Tommy, some vivid and hopeful, others dark and haunting. The police continued to pursue Harold Bennett, conducting surveillance and trying to locate him. They found that Bennett had moved frequently, always staying one step ahead. In one of his last known addresses, officers found a small collection of children's toys, some of which appeared old and worn but familiar enough to suggest a connection. While this discovery raised suspicions, it wasn't enough to bring Bennett into custody or confirm any direct link to Tommy's disappearance. The case was a delicate puzzle, pieces scattered across time and space, waiting for the right moment to fit together. Throughout these developments, the community remained vigilant and hopeful. The media attention brought renewed awareness to the issue of missing children and the importance of community action. The story of Tommy's disappearance, once a local tragedy, had become a beacon for families everywhere grappling with loss and uncertainty. In the midst of the turmoil, Lisa and Mark's bond grew stronger. Their shared mission gave their grief purpose and direction. They learned to lean on each other, finding comfort in their love and determination. Every new lead, every clue uncovered, was a step closer to the truth, a truth they desperately wanted to find. As the investigation pushed forward, one thing was clear: the silent years were over. The community, the police, and most of all Tommy's family would not rest until the boy who disappeared near the playground was found, and the mystery of the abandoned bicycle was finally solved. As the investigation zeroed in on Harold Bennett, a darker and more unsettling picture began to emerge. Bennett's shadow loomed over the neighborhood like a storm cloud, unsettling everyone who had once lived near the playground. The police worked tirelessly to piece together his movements, hoping to find concrete evidence that linked him to Tommy's disappearance. Meanwhile, Lisa and Mark found themselves haunted by the thought that someone so close to the community, yet so unknown, could have been involved in the worst nightmare of their lives. Bennett had a history of drifting from town to town, never staying long enough to form lasting ties. His criminal record was a patchwork of small offenses: trespassing, petty theft, and several accusations of disturbing the peace. But something about his pattern of behavior struck the detectives, as chillingly familiar. The way he appeared suddenly near the playground and then vanished shortly after Tommy's disappearance raised a harrowing possibility. Was Bennett a predator lurking in the shadows, waiting for the right moment? The police intensified their efforts to locate him, issuing a nationwide warrant and sending his information to neighboring jurisdictions. Detectives reviewed CCTV footage from around the neighborhood, hoping to catch a glimpse of Bennett's movements on the day Tommy vanished. A blurry figure matching his description was spotted near the playground hours before the boy disappeared, strengthening the suspicion that Bennett might have been involved. The community's anxiety deepened as Bennett's name became public. Parents whispered warnings to one another, urging vigilance and caution. The playground that had once been a place of joy was now clouded with fear and suspicion. Yet amidst the unease, the people refused to let fear paralyze them. Community watch groups multiplied, and volunteers patrolled the streets day and night, determined to protect the children who still played there. Lisa, despite the emotional toll, became more involved in advocacy for missing children and crime prevention. She attended town hall meetings, speaking with local officials about improving neighborhood safety and urging better coordination between law enforcement agencies. Her voice, once quiet with grief, now rang with determination and resolve. Mark, too, dedicated himself to the cause, drawing strength from his wife and their shared mission. The detectives uncovered an old abandoned cabin on the outskirts of the nearby woods where Bennett was rumored to have stayed. Inside, the cabin was empty and decrepit, but the walls held whispers of the past. Investigators found traces of children's belongings, old toys, and scraps of fabric that looked eerily similar to clothing Tommy had been known to wear. Though nothing definitive tied Tommy to the cabin, the discovery was unsettling. A reminder that the boy's disappearance might be linked to a hidden, darker world just beyond the neighborhood's edge. During the investigation, a former acquaintance of Bennett came forward with disturbing revelations. He described Bennett as secretive and volatile, prone to sudden outbursts of anger and strange behavior that alienated him from those around him. The man claimed Bennett had spoken cryptically about taking what was lost and hiding in the shadows, phrases that sent chills through the detectives. While these statements did not provide direct evidence, they gave insight into Bennett's troubled psyche and possible motives. The case was no longer just about finding a missing child. It was about unraveling the twisted mind of a man who might have changed the lives of many forever. The pressure mounted on the police to find Bennett before he disappeared again. Every lead was pursued relentlessly, but he remained elusive, always one step ahead. His shadow cast a pall over the investigation, a grim reminder of the dangers lurking in the world. For Lisa and Mark, the emergence of Bennett as a suspect was both a relief and a torment. Finally, they had someone to hold accountable, someone who could potentially unlock the mystery that had consumed them for years. Yet the fear that Bennett had harmed their son, or worse, was a heavy burden to bear. Despite the darkness, they clung to hope that the truth would come to light, that Tommy would be found, and that justice would be served. The community stood with them, united against the fear and uncertainty that had once threatened to tear them apart. As the search for Bennett intensified, a fragile thread of hope wove through the neighborhood. The boy who had disappeared near the playground might still be found. The story was far from over, and the fight for answers had only just begun. In the wake of the unsettling developments surrounding Harold Bennett, a new discovery added an unexpected twist to the case that breathed fresh life into the investigation. While the police focused on tracking Bennett's elusive trail, Lisa received a call that would change everything. A local teenager named Emma, known for her love of exploring the old abandoned playground and surrounding woods, had stumbled upon something unusual buried beneath the earth near the bike path. A small, weathered diary. Emma was both excited and nervous as she approached Lisa and Mark with the fragile book in her hands. The diary's leather cover was cracked and faded, its pages yellowed with age, but surprisingly intact. The family took the diary carefully, their fingers trembling with anticipation as they opened it for the first time. Inside, they found entries written in a child's handwriting, scrawled notes, drawings, and dates that corresponded to the days before Tommy's disappearance. The diary was a window into Tommy's world, a secret glimpse of his thoughts, fears, and dreams. The entries described his adventures in the neighborhood, the friends he played with, and a new bike he had received shortly before he vanished. But among the innocent scribbles, there were darker hints, mentions of a stranger who made Tommy feel uneasy, vague descriptions of someone watching him near the playground, and cryptic references to hiding and being taken. Lisa and Mark read the diary over and over, each page unraveling pieces of a puzzle they had desperately sought to solve. The diary's contents offered clues that the police had never encountered before, providing context and urgency to the investigation. Detective Ruiz, who had become deeply invested in the case, saw the diary as a potential breakthrough. He arranged for forensic experts to analyze the handwriting and paper to verify the diary's authenticity and timeline. The diary revealed that Tommy had been quietly fearful in the weeks leading up to his disappearance, too scared to tell anyone about the man who had been following him. There were notes about how Tommy had tried to avoid the stranger by taking different routes home from school and staying close to friends. The last entry was chilling. It spoke of a big change coming soon, though what that change entailed was left unfinished, abruptly cut off mid-sentence. This discovery sent shockwaves through the community and reignited the media coverage surrounding the case. News outlets ran stories highlighting the diary's revelations, and social media buzzed with renewed interest. The public was moved by the intimate and heartbreaking insight into Tommy's experience, a young boy trying to navigate danger alone. Lisa's heart ached with a mixture of pain and hope. The diary confirmed her worst fears, but also proved that Tommy had been fighting to survive, reaching out in the only way he could. She shared the diary with support groups and advocacy organizations, using it as a powerful tool to raise awareness about child safety and the importance of listening to children's concerns. The police followed the diary's clues closely. They re-interviewed witnesses, looking for anyone who might recognize the descriptions Tommy had left behind. Surveillance footage was reviewed again with a sharper focus on identifying the stranger described in the diary. The investigation expanded to include possible locations where Tommy might have been taken or hidden, as suggested by the entries. At the same time, Lisa and Mark struggled with the emotional weight of the diary. Each page was a painful reminder of their son's fear and isolation, but it also reinforced their determination to find him. They clung to the hope that the diary's secrets would lead them to Tommy, alive, safe, and ready to come home. The discovery of the diary marked a turning point in the case. What had seemed like a cold, unsolvable mystery was now charged with new urgency and clarity. For the first time in years, the family and community felt that the pieces of the puzzle were beginning to fit together. But with hope came danger. The diary suggested that the stranger, the shadow looming over Tommy's final days, might still be near. The police warned everyone to be vigilant, and the neighborhood remained on edge. The fight to uncover the truth was far from over, and the path ahead was filled with uncertainty. Yet, Lisa and Mark faced the future with a renewed spirit. The diary was more than just a book. It was their son's voice, a beacon guiding them through the darkness. They vowed to follow its trail wherever it led, to bring Tommy home and finally close the chapter that had haunted their lives for so long. The discovery of Tommy's diary injected fresh energy into the case, but it also raised new questions and possibilities. As Detective Ruiz and his team combed through the diary's cryptic entries, one particular note stood out, a mention of a hidden place near the old playground, a spot where Tommy felt both scared and strangely compelled to visit. This clue was vague, but crucial, hinting at a location that might have escaped the original investigation. Driven by this lead, Detective Ruiz organized a search party that included local volunteers, park rangers, and crime scene investigators. The area around the playground was scoured from the ground up, focusing on dense patches of woods and abandoned structures nearby. Everyone hoped this new search would uncover something tangible, a sign that could finally point to Tommy's whereabouts. Lisa and Mark joined the search with a fragile mixture of hope and dread. The memory of that day, years ago, still haunted them. The sound of Tommy's laughter echoing in the playground, the sudden panic when he disappeared, and the long, agonizing wait afterward. Yet, holding the diary close, they clung to the belief that their son had left behind a secret that could save him. Days of searching yielded little until a volunteer named Sarah spotted something unusual beneath a thicket of overgrown bushes. There, half buried under leaves and dirt, was an old, rusty bicycle, the exact model Tommy had owned. Its paint was chipped and faded, but the frame and handlebars were unmistakable. The abandoned bike was eerily familiar, a silent witness to a long-forgotten moment. The discovery sent a ripple of shock through the search party and the community. Police immediately secured the area and began a thorough forensic examination. Fingerprints, fibers, and traces of DNA were carefully collected from the bike and surrounding soil. The significance of this find was immense. It was the first physical evidence recovered since Tommy vanished, and it seemed to confirm the diary's hints about a hidden place. For Lisa and Mark, seeing the bike was overwhelming. Tears welled up as memories flooded back. Tommy's excitement when he first rode it, the way he had mastered riding without training wheels, and the carefree days before everything changed. The abandoned bike symbolized not just a lost childhood, but a fragile thread of hope that their son might still be alive. Detective Ruiz intensified the investigation, tracing the bike's path to determine how it had ended up in such a remote spot. Surveillance footage from local businesses was re-examined for any signs of someone moving the bike. Witnesses who had previously been interviewed were asked again about unusual activity near the playground and bike path. Meanwhile, the diary's mention of the hidden place became a focal point. Experts mapped out the area and identified a small, concealed underground bunker not far from where the bike was found. The bunker, overgrown and largely forgotten, was accessed and inspected. Inside, remnants of supplies, makeshift bedding, and faint traces of recent activity hinted at a possible hideout. The police theorized that the stranger, possibly Bennett or another unknown figure, might have used this bunker to keep Tommy hidden. The thought was chilling, but offered a tangible lead that the family could finally pursue. It suggested that Tommy's disappearance was not random, but part of a calculated plan. Community members rallied around Lisa and Mark, organizing vigils and fundraisers to support the ongoing search. Their unwavering dedication inspired many, turning grief into collective action. Local media coverage amplified the urgency of the investigation, bringing renewed national attention. Despite the mounting evidence, the case was far from solved. Bennett remained at large, his whereabouts unknown. The police redoubled their efforts to capture him, issuing alerts to border patrols and interstate agencies. Detectives were also exploring the possibility of accomplices who might have helped conceal Tommy or facilitated his disappearance. Lisa struggled to balance hope with fear. Every new lead was a double-edged sword, a chance for reunion, but also a reminder of the dangers her son might still face. She leaned heavily on Mark, their shared strength helping them endure the uncertainty. The abandoned bicycle became a symbol of resilience and determination for the entire town. It was a physical connection to the boy who had disappeared so long ago, reminding everyone that the fight for truth and justice was still alive. And as the investigation pressed forward, Lisa and Mark vowed never to give up until their son was found, no matter where he was or how long it took. The abandoned bicycle found near the hidden bunker became the linchpin that propelled the investigation into a new, hopeful phase. Detective Ruiz and his team worked relentlessly, piecing together clues from the diary, the bunker, and the recovered bicycle. The painstaking forensic analysis finally yielded a crucial breakthrough: a partial DNA match from samples taken near the bike's handlebars. The sample wasn't Tommy's, but it was linked to Harold Bennett, the elusive man who had haunted the investigation from start. This discovery electrified the police department. They immediately intensified efforts to locate Bennett, coordinating with federal agencies and surveillance units across the country. His photograph was circulated widely, with officers on high alert to intercept him before he could vanish again. The town, meanwhile, breathed a collective sigh of cautious relief, buoyed by the prospect that justice might finally be within reach. Lisa and Mark felt a mix of emotions. Relief that progress was being made, fear over what Bennett might have done to Tommy, and hope that their son might still be alive. The thought that Bennett's DNA was near the bicycle confirmed the family's darkest suspicions, but also offered a fragile thread to hold on to. Meanwhile, the bunker underwent a meticulous search. Investigators found items that told a grim story: discarded clothes, a torn backpack, and personal effects that bore traces of a child's presence. The evidence suggested that Tommy might have been held there, if only for a short time, but there was no sign of him now. The bunker was clearly abandoned, yet recent footprints and disturbances in the dirt indicated that someone had visited not long ago. Detective Ruiz expanded the search perimeter, sending out canine units and deploying drones equipped with thermal imaging to scan the nearby woods and underbrush. The urgency was palpable, time was slipping away, and every hour was critical. As the search unfolded, Lisa and Mark worked with child recovery specialists and counselors, preparing themselves for all outcomes. They faced the hardest truth, that their son might have suffered unimaginable hardships, but also that he could survive, resilient and strong. The community's support remained steadfast. Volunteers helped organize nightly patrols around the playground and the surrounding areas. Local businesses donated supplies for the search teams, and neighbors opened their homes as temporary command centers for investigators. Amid this flurry of activity, an unexpected lead came from a man named George, a recluse living on the edge of town who had rarely interacted with others. George reported hearing strange noises from the woods in the weeks after Tommy's disappearance. He described faint, muffled sounds, cries or whispers that seemed to come from beneath the ground near the bunker. Though his account was vague, police considered it significant enough to intensify the subterranean search. With renewed vigor, excavation experts were brought in to carefully examine the earth beneath and around the bunker. Hours turned into days as they probed deeper, hoping to uncover a hidden chamber or passage. The tension was unbearable, every sound amplified by hope and fear. One afternoon, the excavation team uncovered a small, concealed trapdoor hidden beneath layers of soil and roots. It was weathered but intact, as if someone had carefully disguised the entrance. The door's discovery sent shockwaves through the team, who immediately called for backup and prepared to investigate what lay beyond. Lisa and Mark were at the scene within hours, their hearts pounding with a mixture of dread and anticipation. Could this be where Tommy had been kept? Was their son still alive behind that trapdoor? As the trapdoor creaked open, the air inside was thick with dust and silence. Flashlights pierced the darkness, revealing a cramped, hollow space, a hidden cellar or storage room. It was empty except for a few remnants of fabric and a faded teddy bear, worn and dirty, but unmistakably a child's toy. The discovery was heartbreaking but hopeful. Tommy had been here, somewhere in this hidden place. The space held no immediate sign of him now, but the very existence of the room confirmed that he had been close. Detective Ruiz vowed that this breakthrough would not be the end, but the beginning of the final search. With the community behind them, and the pieces finally coming together, the family dared to hope for a reunion that had once seemed impossible. Lisa clutched the teddy bear tightly, whispering a promise to her son. Wherever he was, they were coming for him. The fight to bring Tommy home was far from over, but for the first time in years, the light of hope shone brightly in the darkness. The opening of the trapdoor revealed a narrow staircase descending into darkness. Detective Ruiz, flashlight in hand, led the way down the creaking steps, followed closely by the forensic team and Lisa and Mark, whose hearts pounded with a desperate mixture of hope and fear. The air grew cooler and damp as they descended into the hidden cellar, an underground chamber that seemed untouched for years. The silence was deafening, broken only by the echo of footsteps and the quiet drip of water somewhere deep inside. The cellar was small but sturdy, with stone walls coated in grime and cobwebs. Dust particles floated in the beams of their flashlights, illuminating remnants of what once might have been a makeshift shelter. A torn blanket, broken toys, and faded drawings pinned to the walls. The scene painted a heartbreaking picture, a place where a child had tried to survive in isolation, trapped in a secret prison beneath the earth. Lisa's eyes scanned the space with trembling hands, her voice cracking as she whispered Tommy's name. Mark reached out to comfort her, their shared pain binding them closer. Though there was no sign of Tommy, the traces of his presence filled them with a bittersweet hope. This cellar was a testament to his resilience. He had endured, somehow, against all odds. Detective Ruiz instructed the forensic team to collect every piece of evidence. The torn blanket was sent for DNA testing, while the drawings, crudely sketched yet filled with childish imagination, were carefully photographed and preserved. Among the debris, they found scraps of paper with scribbled notes, some matching entries from Tommy's diary, and a small, rusted tin box locked tight but containing faint traces of something inside. As experts worked to open the tin box without damaging its contents, the team explored every corner of the cellar. It was clear that whoever had confined Tommy here had tried to keep him alive, but the conditions were harsh, and survival would have been a daily struggle. Meanwhile, outside the cellar, police expanded their search to nearby areas, hoping to find additional clues or tunnels connected to the hidden room. Local residents joined the effort, their fear turning into determination to find answers. The entire town seemed to hold its breath, waiting for news. Lisa and Mark were overwhelmed by the flood of emotions. Grief for the years lost, gratitude for the discovery, and a growing hope that their son might yet be found. They clung to the belief that Tommy had not only survived, but had left behind these subtle signs to guide them back to him. The forensic team finally managed to open the tin box, revealing a small collection of personal items. A faded photograph of Tommy and a man, a crudely made bracelet of intertwined threads, and a note scrawled in a shaky hand. The note was unsigned but spoke of regret and a desperate plea for forgiveness. The handwriting was unfamiliar, hinting that another person might have been involved in Tommy's captivity. Detective Ruiz's suspicion grew. This new piece of evidence suggested that the case was more complex than a simple abduction. The presence of a second individual, someone who might have helped or even cared for Tommy, added layers to the investigation. The team sent the photograph and bracelet for analysis, hoping to uncover more about this mysterious accomplice. Was this person a kidnapper with a conscience, or a captive trying to aid Tommy? The possibilities raced through Lisa and Mark's minds, mixing hope with uncertainty. As night fell over the town, the hidden cellar remained a haunting reminder of the boys' ordeal. A dark, silent place that held secrets yet to be uncovered. But it also represented a turning point, the tangible proof that the long search was moving closer to its goal. Lisa whispered a prayer, vowing to keep fighting for Tommy no matter what. Mark stood by her side, their hands intertwined, united in a mission that had consumed their lives. The discovery of the cellar was just the beginning, and they knew the road ahead would be difficult, but at last, the pieces of the puzzle were coming together. With renewed determination, Detective Ruiz and his team prepared for the next phase of the investigation, one that could finally bring Tommy home and heal the wounds that had haunted the town for years. The discovery of the note inside the rusted tin box sent ripples through the investigation. Detective Ruiz carefully examined the shaky handwriting, comparing it to known samples, but it belonged to no one on file. The message was a desperate confession, filled with remorse and cryptic hints about the boy's captivity. Whoever wrote, it seemed torn between loyalty and guilt, revealing a complex relationship with Tommy's abductor and perhaps even with the boy himself. This revelation opened a new, unsettling line of inquiry. The possibility that Tommy's abduction was not the work of a lone predator, but involved a second, more compassionate figure, a silent accomplice caught in a moral struggle. Detective Ruiz called in behavioral analysts and profilers to interpret the psychological implications, hoping to piece together the identity and motives of this mysterious individual. Meanwhile, forensic analysis of the bracelet, a crude but meaningful symbol of connection, yielded unexpected results. Traces of female DNA were found on the threads, suggesting that a woman might have played a role in Tommy's ordeal. This finding added layers of complexity to the case, raising questions about whether the accomplice was an unwilling participant or someone trying to protect the boy from greater harm. Lisa and Mark grappled with mixed emotions. The thought that someone else had been involved, possibly someone who cared enough to leave a note and personal items, ignited cautious hope. Could this person be the key to finding Tommy alive? Or was it a sign of deeper tragedy? They clung to the slim possibility that this accomplice might reveal truths that would finally end their nightmare. Detective Ruiz expanded the investigation, revisiting old leads and questioning anyone who had contact with Harold Bennett or the surrounding community. Several neighbors recalled seeing a woman near the area in the days following Tommy's disappearance, a quiet figure who avoided attention. The descriptions were vague, but consistent. A woman in her 30s, often seen at odd hours, sometimes carrying a bag or package. The team tracked down several women matching this profile, conducting interviews and background checks. One name stood out: Rachel Turner, a woman with a troubled past and a history of association with Bennett. She had vanished shortly after Tommy's disappearance, leaving behind few traces. As the search for Rachel intensified, Lisa and Mark hoped she might hold answers that could lead them to their son. They envisioned her as a beacon in the darkness, someone who might have witnessed moments others missed or held Tommy's trust. Then a break came unexpectedly. A neighbor reported seeing Rachel's car parked near an abandoned farmhouse several miles outside town. Police moved quickly, surrounding the property and preparing for a search. The farmhouse was dilapidated, overgrown with weeds, and cloaked in silence, a perfect hideout. Inside, they found signs of recent habitation, scattered clothing, discarded food containers, and, most shockingly, a small room arranged like a child's refuge. Soft blankets, a makeshift bed, and toys suggested someone had been caring for a young boy not long ago. But Rachel was nowhere to be found. The farmhouse search deepened the mystery. Was Rachel hiding Tommy there, or had he been taken elsewhere? The absence of the boy fueled fears, but also strengthened resolve. The evidence proved Tommy had survived longer than anyone expected. Detective Ruiz dispatched a nationwide alert for Rachel Turner, urging anyone with information to come forward. Meanwhile, Lisa and Mark clung to the hope that this mysterious woman might finally guide them to their son's rescue. As the investigation evolved, the town watched anxiously. The shadow of the past lingered, but now there was a tangible sense that the dark chapter was nearing its end. The search for the accomplice became a race against time, a desperate attempt to unravel the final secrets that had kept Tommy lost for so long. In the quiet moments, Lisa whispered a prayer for Rachel, whoever she was, hoping that compassion and courage might prevail in the tangled web of betrayal and love that defined this tragic story. The disappearance of Rachel Turner from the abandoned farmhouse ignited a frantic manhunt that stretched well beyond the quiet town. Detective Ruiz knew that every moment counted. Rachel held the key to unraveling the mystery of Tommy's fate and possibly to finding the boy alive. The police coordinated with neighboring jurisdictions and federal agencies, issuing an all-points bulletin with detailed descriptions and possible sightings. Lisa and Mark were caught in a whirlwind of emotions. Hope sparked by Rachel's connection to the case, but also the fear that they might lose her before she could reveal what she knew. They spent restless nights watching the news, clinging to the possibility that their son was still out there, somewhere, waiting. Meanwhile, Rachel moved cautiously, aware that the police were closing in. She was hiding in a small cabin deep in the woods, miles from civilization, living off the land and scavenging supplies. The isolation weighed heavily on her, but her resolve was unwavering. She knew that revealing the truth meant risking everything: her freedom, her safety, But the thought of Tommy's suffering was a heavier burden. Inside the cabin, Rachel pored over the diary she had hidden in the farmhouse, the pages stained and worn but filled with Tommy's voice. Memories flooded her mind, moments she had shared with the boy, the fragile hope he had clung to amid darkness. She had promised to protect him, no matter the cost, but the walls were closing in and the weight of secrets pressed harder with each passing day. Detective Ruiz's team combed through Rachel's past, searching for clues to predict her next move. They discovered her ties to a distant relative living in a nearby town, a connection that could offer shelter or a way out. Surveillance intensified around that area, and officers set traps in places Rachel might seek refuge. One chilly evening, a witness spotted a woman matching Rachel's description near a convenience store on the outskirts of town. Police swiftly moved to intercept, but she slipped away into the shadows, leaving behind only a discarded scarf and a trail that led deeper into the wilderness. The chase turned into a high-stakes game of cat and mouse. Rachel's knowledge of the terrain gave her an advantage, but the relentless pursuit wore on her spirit. She realized that time was running out, not just for her, but for Tommy. Meanwhile, Lisa and Mark clung to every update, their hope a fragile flame amid the storm of uncertainty. They reached out to the community for support, organizing vigils and spreading awareness, desperate to keep the search alive and the memory of their son burning bright. As the manhunt pressed on, Detective Ruiz coordinated a bold plan to trap Rachel by cutting off her escape routes. Using helicopters, canine units, and ground teams, the police methodically narrowed the circle around the wooded area where she was believed to be hiding. One early morning, as dawn broke over the forest, officers finally spotted movement near a creek bed. Rachel, exhausted and cornered, emerged with her hands raised, tears streaming down her face. She was taken into custody without resistance, her eyes filled with a mixture of relief and sorrow. In the following interrogation, Rachel revealed a harrowing story. She admitted to being complicit in Tommy's captivity, but insisted that she had tried to protect him from Bennett's cruelty. She spoke of secret trips to the hidden cellar, providing food and comfort whenever she could, and of a plan to escape together. But fear had kept her silent, trapped in a web of manipulation and threats. Her confession shed light on the dark, tangled relationship between captors and captive, revealing a complex, human story beneath the horror. For Lisa and Mark, Rachel's words were bittersweet, proof that their son had survived in some form, yet haunted by the pain he must have endured. The search for Tommy intensified, guided now by Rachel's fragile hope and reluctant cooperation. The family's long nightmare was far from over, but at last there was a path forward. After Rachel's confession, the investigation entered a critical phase. Detective Ruiz and his team meticulously pieced together every detail Rachel provided, mapping out timelines, locations, and hidden spaces. The fragile hope that Tommy might still be alive fueled the entire effort. For Lisa and Mark, each new clue was a bittersweet reminder of the years lost, but also a beacon guiding them toward a possible reunion. Rachel's story revealed that Tommy had been moved from the hidden cellar months after his disappearance to a more secluded location, a remote cabin deep in the forest, far from prying eyes. This cabin was described as small but livable, equipped with basic necessities. Rachel had been there only a few times, always under Bennett's watchful eye, but she believed Tommy had survived there, possibly even trying to escape. The team mobilized quickly, gathering search and rescue units, forensic experts, and canine teams to scour the dense woods surrounding the described area. The local community joined in, their anxiety turning into determined action. Every rustle of leaves and broken twig was met with tense anticipation. Days of searching stretched into a grueling effort, with nothing concrete found. Just as the hope began to wane, a canine unit picked up a faint scent near a forgotten trail. Following the dogs, searchers pushed deeper into the wilderness, guided by the subtle signs of human presence: an old campfire site, footprints, and discarded wrappers. Finally, they came upon the cabin, exactly as Rachel described it. Weathered by time and neglect, the cabin stood silently among towering trees, its windows dark and shuttered. The police surrounded it carefully, weapons drawn, but ready for rescue rather than conflict. Inside, the air was stale but carried a faint, unmistakable hint of life. The search team found signs of recent habitation, a worn blanket, empty food cans, and, most importantly, a small pair of shoes by the doorway. Shoes that could only belong to a child. Suddenly, from a hidden corner, a frail figure emerged. A boy, dirty and thin but alive. His eyes widened with fear and confusion. But when he saw Lisa and Mark's faces in the crowd outside, something shifted. Recognition sparked, and tears welled up in his eyes. "Tommy," Lisa whispered, her voice trembling. Mark stepped forward, kneeling beside the boy, wrapping him in a warm jacket. The years of pain and uncertainty melted into a moment of pure, overwhelming relief. Emergency medical teams rushed Tommy to a nearby hospital for evaluation. Despite his malnourished state, the doctors were optimistic about his recovery. Psychologists and social workers were prepared to help him heal, understanding that the road ahead would be as challenging emotionally as it was physically. News of the breakthrough spread rapidly, igniting celebrations in the town. The long-lost boy was home, alive against all odds, and the family's enduring faith had finally been rewarded. Detective Ruiz remained cautious but hopeful. The case was far from closed. Bennett's whereabouts remained unknown, and the full story still needed to be told. But for now, the priority was Tommy's recovery and reunification with his family. Lisa held Tommy close, whispering promises of safety and love. Mark watched with tears streaming down his face, grateful beyond words for the second chance they had been given. The community, once haunted by tragedy, now found hope in resilience and the power of never giving up. Tommy's return was a testament to the enduring human spirit and the relentless pursuit of justice. As the sun set over the town, a new chapter began, one filled with healing, forgiveness, and the unbreakable bond of family. Tommy's return marked the beginning of a long, complex journey toward healing, not only for him, but for Lisa, Mark, and everyone involved. The initial relief of finding him alive was quickly tempered by the realization of the emotional scars he carried. The years of isolation and trauma had left deep wounds that would not heal overnight. At the hospital, Tommy was surrounded by a team of specialists, pediatricians, psychologists, and social workers dedicated to his physical and mental recovery. Lisa stayed by his side, whispering gentle words of comfort, while Mark took on the difficult task of handling the legal and logistical aspects of the case. The family's focus was on rebuilding trust, helping Tommy adjust to a world that had moved on without him. Therapy sessions revealed fragments of Tommy's experience, the fear, the loneliness, and the rare moments of hope that Rachel's presence had brought. Though his memories were patchy and sometimes painful, he clung to the knowledge that his parents never stopped searching for him. That love was the lifeline that kept him going. Meanwhile, Detective Ruiz worked tirelessly to close the case. Bennett was still at large, a dangerous man who needed to be brought to justice. Investigators followed leads, coordinating with federal agencies, but the trail had grown cold. The community urged law enforcement to remain vigilant, fearful that Bennett could strike again. Lisa and Mark faced their own challenges, navigating the complicated emotions that surfaced after years of uncertainty. Guilt, anger, and relief coexisted, shaping their daily lives. They sought support from counseling groups for families affected by abduction, finding solace in shared experiences and understanding. Public interest in the case brought media attention, and the family decided to share their story, not for fame, but to raise awareness about child safety and the importance of never giving up hope. They spoke at community events, advocating for stronger support systems and preventive measures. Through it all, Tommy began to find his voice. Slowly, he reintegrated into school and social life, with teachers and counselors providing tailored support. His resilience inspired those around him, a living reminder that even in the darkest circumstances, recovery is possible. The relationship between Tommy and Rachel remained complex. The revelations of her role as an accomplice who cared enough to protect him created conflicting feelings. The legal process would decide her fate, but for the family, forgiveness was part of the healing process, a recognition of the humanity in flawed choices. Mark and Lisa focused on creating a safe, nurturing home, one filled with love and patience. They celebrated small victories, Tommy's first smile in months, his renewed curiosity, and the gradual restoration of childhood joys. Detective Ruiz, reflecting on the case, acknowledged the community's strength and the extraordinary perseverance of Tommy's family. Their unyielding determination had brought a boy back from the shadows, proving that hope and action could overcome even the most harrowing circumstances. As months passed, the wounds began to heal, and a sense of normalcy returned. The nightmare of the past remained, but it no longer defined their lives. Instead, it became a powerful story of survival, courage, and the enduring bond of family. In the quiet moments, Lisa and Mark held each other close, grateful for the miracle they had been given and ready to face whatever the future held, together. The months following Tommy's return were filled with both challenges and triumphs. The Turner family was learning to rebuild their lives, piece by piece, carrying with them the scars of the past, but also the hope for a brighter future. What once felt impossible, the reunion and recovery, had become their reality, a testament to their resilience and unwavering love. Tommy's progress was remarkable. With the support of therapists, teachers, and his family, he slowly rediscovered the joys of childhood. His laughter began to fill the home once again, and his eyes sparkled with curiosity and wonder, no longer clouded by fear. The community rallied around the family, offering support, encouragement, and a renewed sense of togetherness. Lisa and Mark, though still healing from their own trauma, found strength in their son's transformation. They cherished every moment, bedtime stories, family dinners, and simple walks in the park. Each day was a gift, a chance to make new memories and heal old wounds. The bond between them grew deeper, forged in the fires of adversity and tempered by hope. The legal proceedings against Bennett moved forward. With Rachel's cooperation and the evidence uncovered, the authorities were able to bring him to justice. His capture brought a sense of closure, a firm reminder that evil can be confronted and overcome. Yet, the Turner family knew that healing wasn't about forgetting the past, but learning to live with it, finding peace in the present. Tommy's story became a symbol of hope for others facing similar struggles. His family worked with local organizations to raise awareness about child safety and the importance of community vigilance. They spoke candidly about the pain of loss and the power of persistence, inspiring others to never give up on their loved ones. As the years passed, Tommy grew into a confident, compassionate young man. He excelled in school and nurtured dreams that stretched far beyond the playground where he had vanished so many years ago. His resilience was a beacon of light, a reminder that even the darkest nights eventually give way to dawn. The Turner family's journey was not just about survival, but transformation. They had been tested in ways no family should endure, but through love, courage, and unwavering hope, they emerged stronger. Their story was a living testament to the power of faith, the strength of community, and the unbreakable bonds of family. One sunny afternoon, the family returned to the playground where Tommy had disappeared years before. Surrounded by friends and neighbors, they celebrated his return with laughter, tears, and the promise of new beginnings. The old bicycle, once abandoned and forgotten, now stood as a symbol of their journey, a reminder that even in the face of loss, hope endures. As the sun set over the peaceful town, Lisa, Mark, and Tommy stood together, ready to face the future. Their story was one of pain and healing, loss and reunion, but above all, it was a story of hope, a hope that never died. Thank you so much for joining me on this emotional journey of hope, resilience, and the unbreakable bond of family. Tommy's story reminds us that even in the darkest moments, there's always a chance for light to break through. If this story touched your heart or inspired you in any way, please don't forget to like the video, leave a comment sharing your thoughts and feelings, and subscribe to the channel for more compelling stories just like this. Your support means the world and helps keep these stories alive. Until next time, stay hopeful and cherish those you love.